video 1, you learnt that to establish a claim of negligence, 3 elements are necessary. Firstly, that the defendant owed the plaintiff a duty of care. Secondly, the defendant breached this duty of care. And thirdly, that the plaintiff suffered damage as a result of this breach of duty of care. In this video, we will examine the first element, duty of care, more closely. The famous decision in the 1932 case of Donoghue and Stevenson established the general test we use to decide whether a duty of care exists. This case established the idea that a person owes a duty to their legal neighbours. You should read this case in your textbook at the end of this video. Look up the table of cases in the back of your textbook to find this case. A legal neighbour is a person who will be directly affected by my actions. So I should think about the consequences of my actions on that person before I do anything. For example, in video 1, the person eating the banana should have thought about the consequences of throwing the banana skin on the ground to other people walking by before he threw it on the ground. So the person who slipped on the banana peel is the legal neighbour of the person who threw the banana skin on the ground. To work out whether a person is my legal neighbour or not, courts use the reasonable foreseeability test. This means if it is reasonably foreseeable that my actions will cause injury or damage to someone if I don't take reasonable care with what I'm doing, then this person is my legal neighbour and I owe them a duty of care. Another factor that helps a court decide whether a duty of care exists is the concept of proximity. Proximity involves the idea of nearness or closeness between the people involved in the incident. One example of proximity is physical proximity, as in the banana peel case. The banana peel thrower and the victim were physically close to each other. Another example is proximity based on a special relationship between the two people involved. For example, between a plumber working on a worksite in Forest Glen and his boss who is in Brisbane. Even though the plumber and his boss are a fair distance apart physically, the law says that they are close or proximate because of their relationship as boss and worker. If you are proximate to someone, then it is likely you owe them a duty of care. There are well-established cases where a duty of care is owed by one person to another. For example, courts accept that drivers of motor vehicles owe a duty of care to other road users and to pedestrians. Courts also accept that teachers owe a duty of care to their students and doctors owe a duty of care to their patients. To summarise, the first element a plaintiff must prove in a negligence claim is that the defendant owed the plaintiff a duty of care. To prove this, it must be shown that the plaintiff was a legal neighbour of the defendant. To decide if people are legal neighbours, we apply the reasonable foreseeability test. Another factor that helps a court decide whether a duty of care was owed is the concept of proximity. Now check your understanding of the first element of negligence, duty of care, by completing Negligence Quiz 2.